Ashtabula, from Columbiana, Trumbull, and Mahoning County. So again, I thank you for renaming yourself. I thank you for helping us know who you are, because that just helps us as we move forward. So Greg, you don't know this, but you're front and center on my screen, so I'm looking right at you. So good to see you. I love that smile. This is the first session of our PBIS Coaches series for this year. Matthew is sharing with you on the screen the sign-in either QR code, or you can use the link that is in the chat box, or there is a link on your note page as well. You have multiple ways of signing in. That sign in lets us know who's with us, who's in the room. It also lets us know your email, so we can share out any updates as we go along. And it also helps us network with others. And I know that I have a few rooms that have multiple individuals in it. So shout out to Struthers' team, who is all in one room. Go Wildcats. So as we move forward today, let me share with you that in the room with you and to guide you is a few individuals, but we also want to make sure that you know that we are really actively trying to push out our social media. So if you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Our YouTube isn't quite up and running as far as we wanted to, so don't go out there and explore yet. Yeah. But Facebook and Twitter, we would love to have you follow us. And if you follow us, we will in turn follow you. So in the room again happens to be the PBIS Consultants for State Support Team Region 5. And it really is my pleasure to introduce the team. We have a tried and true Matthew Heath, who was with us last year. We also have a brand new consultant here that comes with a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience in the area of PBIS by the name of Jessica Dedick, which you're going to hear more from later on this morning. And again, you have me, Marla, who is so thrilled to be here because this is probably one of my most favorite topics to talk about and to help people grow in. So welcome. So we try to get through this beginning part as fast as possible. This came from CBS in the morning, your session in 90 seconds or less. And as always, we want to have our norms. We have to have outcomes. When Jessica, Matthew, and I sit down, we actually look at the data of the region to determine what we want to present. And then therefore that starts to formulate our agenda. So as a participant, we want you to be an active participant. We want you to actually feel free to network with others, have fun learning. We, of course, always believe in the idea of being respectful. We want to make sure that we always assume or presume positive intent. We want you to realize that we need you to be problem solving, because there's a quote that's going to be coming up that talks about being a problem solver, and that's all I'm going to tease you with. And then, of course, always maintaining that privacy, because what we talk about sometimes, we bring up student concerns, we bring up district concerns. So we want you to know that in this room, you are absolutely safe. But our outcomes for today are pretty much clearly aligned to our agenda. We are going to make sure that as this team moves forward, you have current updates. We're going to also make sure that you also have the time to get into small groups and network with others. We are also going to hopefully launch you into creating action steps that align to your PBIS implementation. And as our agenda looks, we're going to start with those updates, move into the celebration of the 21-22 binders. We're going to talk about starting strong this year. We want to know what you've done to start strong this year. Move into action planning and then our feedback. We build our sessions from your feedback. All right, thumbs up, thumbs down. You can give me a real thumbs up or a thumbs down. You can use your reaction button. Let us know, thumbs up, thumbs down. Are we cool? Are we good to move forward? Love the reaction buttons. Thank you. Nice. Thank you, Beth. So shout out in the house. Love to see all the faces that we are seeing. So as we move forward today's session, we designed a brand new Padlet for you. Again, it's on your note page, but we also wanted to put it here in the chat box so that you have it. This will have all of the resources that we will be introducing this year. And as you can see across that screen, you are going to see that we have some general resources, which talks about when our sessions are and some maybe neat articles that we want you to read. The second column will usually have our Google slide deck, our sign-in sheets, and some different general things that happen during the sessions. Then you're going to see in the third column, wonderful action plan templates for whatever tier you are on. And then moving forward, you're going to see other resources that you, thank you, Matthew, for actually going there. I appreciate that. That's all right. So truly, that column that says building capacity of others is talking about the restraint and seclusion information that just was released over the summer. Moving into that fourth column is that action planning. And you'll see after that, that is where we are going to continue to build. So why don't we give you 1 minute to actually go out there, bookmark this site so that way you can always get to it. And we will reconnect in 1 minute. During that time, you can explore and bookmark. Alrighty.
Oh,
If you had a chance to bookmark that, let me know by giving me some sort of reaction. I'm a fan of the party hat. Feel free to use the party hat at random anytime through the course of this morning, because it just means it's a celebration. And to me, this is a celebration. So again, this is your Padlet. You have access to it. You even have, oh, I like that emoji too, whoever put that little heart with a smiley face. You can react to things. You can even add to it if you have great pertinent articles that you want to share with everybody. So moving forward, first thing that we wanted to share with you, you can go past that note page, Matthew, because I think we have that pretty much covered. The first thing that we want to share with you, as always, is the important piece of setting our intentions. We know that one of the things that helps us move forward is to actually be purposeful. And this could be an intention setting for your group, because I know I have groups here. I have Struthers here as a group. I have Boss here as a group. I've got a couple individuals from other schools that are together. But think about at the end of this session, after you've heard our outcomes, you know what we hope to present to you today. At the end of this session, I want to know or learn what about what was on our agenda. And then the next step is to achieve this, I intend to do this. So that means taking our words into action. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to write your intention, and then 1 minute to do how you're going to do it. And then I'm probably going to ask for someone to either share verbally by opening up their mic, which you're always welcome to do, or typing it in the chat box. So 2 minutes, I'm going to mute us so you have some quiet time.
URE.
Okay, we are down to the last 10 seconds. And Leanne, thank you for that intention. That is an awesome intention, and that actually fits beautifully into our agenda. Being able to get started this year with the action plans. Nice. Anybody else want to share out their intention for the day, the intention for this session, and how they're going to move forward? Again, feel free to unmute. Feel free to type it into chat.
I'll say something really quickly here. We're an online school. And so this is our, I think it's our third year of implementing, PBIS across the board. One thing that I feel like I really would like to learn, and maybe by networking with some other schools, I could find out. But we, being an online school, we have other, I would say, like delicate data that we get from our gaggle safety team. And it's something that I have tracked in the past, but I feel like it's something I want to find a better way to, to track that, and then to determine, the best steps going forward. So that's something that's kind of been on my mind as, I've been thinking about PBIS, especially for this year.
Thank you, Madeline. I appreciate that. That's going to give all of us in this room something to think about how we can help you move forward. Mr. Alden says, I intend to learn more about PBIS action steps and how this group can support our PBIS program here. Looking for lots of ideas. So welcome, Joe. You are new to our group, so thank you for joining us. He is coming from
Pymatuny Valley Primary School.
Yes, you got that out before I was going to say PB, but I'm like, I think I should say it out loud.
That's Joe at the Ashtabula County Administrator Conference.
All right.
And again, my kids go to PVs.
Right.
He's more likely to stand out. Closer to home.
So whether or not you share your intention out loud, but hopefully you wrote it down, because one of the things that research supports is that when you write it down, you are more apt to follow through. Write it down, refer back to it. And we are going to revisit it at the end, because we call our end the optimistic closure, which is really, what are you going to do now? So thinking about what you've been doing over the course of the summer, here is just a little icebreaker to start thinking about. Finish this sentence, and you can put this in the chat box. The current book or TV series I'm indulging in is blank. So You can enter it in at any time and wonder about the team around me. Oh, House of the Dragons. I like, yes. Oh, I don't know that one, Greg. The Patient. Nice. This is helping our reading list, our watch list. Oh, She-Hulk. Oh, wait, they're coming in too fast.
Oh my goodness.
I did watch a bunch of the Lock and Key when it first came out.
Murders in the Building. Big Brother. Nice. Oh, I've got a Star Trek fan out there. I'm with you, Marie. I knew there was another kindred spirit there. Knew there was another reason why.
So many I don't even know about.
Yeah, there are a lot.
I'm still catching up on Stranger Things.
I gave up
I
on
have to wait till the kids go to bed because, it's a little too much.
I like, that went too fast.
I am looking forward to the new Handmaid's Tale season.
I
Soon.
would like to see that too.
Stranger Things, see?
Mhm.
I was really good at watching all those, and then this last season, I'm just like, I watched 2 episodes and I
That's
just,
as far as I got.
but I've tried to watch The Sun, which is the Pierce Brosnan series, The Crown, Peaky Blinders. I have not been able to get into any of those. I've watched a couple. I did watch a lot of The Sun, and then I just sort of, I don't know.
Meredith loves The Crown.
I have not, I don't know if it's my narcolepsy. You wait, to watch anything once the kids go to bed, and at that point in time, you can barely keep your eyes open.
That's it. That's
It's really
exactly
not
it.
narcolepsy. It's just,
Yeah,
Love that.
it's definitely an obstacle. Yeah.
I don't think I'm indulging in anything past, but what I am looking forward to is the new Lord of the Rings
Oh,
series
sure.
that's coming out on Amazon. I have been waiting patiently for that, but
I was really hoping for a good book recommendation.
I know. I haven't been into a series in a long time. Just random books.
Just give me a random,
Jarrett,
that's really good.
I'm waiting for it. So Jarrett, you must be a Lord of the Rings fan too. Anything sci-fi, I'm there. Fantasy, I'm there. But then I also like those historical pieces. But the point of this is also that sometimes these things help us build our inner resilience. And we need to have strong inner resilience in order to move forward and help support others. So I don't want you to indulge where you neglect all of your other responsibilities, but make sure you indulge to build that inner resilience. So we have 2 series that we want to share with you. First, you are in the Coaches series, the Coaches Network. Today is our first day. We have 3 others planned, November 3rd, January 5th, and March 2nd. It is so hard for me to say 2023. All of our hours will be 8:30 to 10:30 for that Coaches Network, and they are all available on Stars. We do have where when it comes close that Stars automatically closes that window, but never fear. If you need to get in, reach out to one of us and we know somebody that can get you in. So we'll make sure that we always share. Our second series that we want to share with you is that we are going to do something called PBIS office hours. It's something different. It's sort of like flipping the script, or you might call it a flipped classroom. What we are going to do is we are going to record little snippets of information. And when I say little, probably we're trying to keep under 30 minutes of a topic, because we know how busy all of us are right now. So we want to chunk out the information to you. And so we'll send it out to you ahead of time. And then on that particular date, October 6th, December 1st, February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, we might do it again and again and again. April 6th, April 20th, we will then talk about that video that we shared with you, that concept. So one of them might be on acknowledgement. Another one might be on how to recognize good tier 2 strategies. Whatever those might be, we'll send those out 2 weeks in advance. So that way then we can talk about it on that date. But guess what? Guess who gets to help us determine the content? Drum roll, please. Put it in the chat box. Who do you think it is? I'm gonna wait for it. It's going to be you. You're going to help us by the feedback that you give us and the ideas that you need to develop those mini vignettes. All right, so moving forward on our day. Here is that quote that we were talking about earlier. I'm going to let you read it. And then I'm going to read it too, because to me, it's so powerful, especially this time of year. This is the beginning. Discipline is helping a child solve a problem. Punishment is making a child suffer for having a problem. To raise problem solvers, focus on solutions, not retribution. What do you think that means? Think about what that means to you. Think about what that might mean for your community. Or you can even think about, why do you think we brought this quote to you today? And as you are thinking about that, feel free to share something in the chat about that particular quote, even if whether or not you think that is something that you can share moving forward. I know that our team has thought about this quote for quite a bit and thinking about what that means to us. We know that research supports that punishment doesn't help a student learn the correct way to behave. It may stop the behavior momentarily, maybe even for a short time, but it doesn't help them learn what the right way to do things are. So just keep that in your mind as we move forward. All right. So as shared, we're going to go through some updates. We're going to share them quickly, but by all means, if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out, put them in the chat, private message us, let us know. First, we want to announce the 2022 OLAC and PBIS Showcase. It's December 6th, and registration is open, I believe. We've given you the website so that you can go and explore. At this time, the agenda is not ready for us, but if it's anything like last year, you are going to be able to participate in such a wealth of learning, and it's free. And the other wonderful piece about this, even though I love networking with people and I love talking with people, and it's hard for me to be virtual, I love the fact that this one's virtual, because if you can't give the whole day, you can pop in and out of sessions that are going to be important to you. So we encourage you to visit this site often and check out the agenda as it continues to build. We know that there's going to be some wonderful things that are going to be introduced. And the beauty of this also is not only is it about PBIS, OLAC is also going to be highlighting a lot of neat leadership ideas. So for my leaders in this room, which happens to be all of you, our administrators in the room, this is going to be a great place to get some new ideas. Another update that we need to share with you is the update on.
What? Hold on. So they are still, there's a call for presenters September 6th for OLAC. So if you, your team have something that you want to share, which I can't imagine that you don't, because everybody's doing a lot of wonderful things in their schools. It's just a matter of perspective. And a lot of times we don't give ourselves the credit of the things that we are getting accomplished and implementing. So think about or consider presenting. And also too, if I'm not mistaken, this is the one, this is one where once you register, you actually have access to all of the sessions.
Absolutely.
Because I think they're all, correct me if I'm wrong, they're all pre-recorded, correct?
They were in the flip,
And then
yes.
you
Yeah.
get the whole, you basically get access to everything that, all the presentations as well as the materials that went along with them. So like Marla said, if you don't have a full day, but you've got some time, I would highly encourage everyone to sign up for that. Again, because even if you only get to participate in one or two things, you do have access to all the other presentations that took place during that day. So something else to consider. I'm sorry, Marla, I will continue on.
Oh, please don't apologize, because actually I forgot to say that. And, you know, as you mentioned that, each one of the school districts that are with us happen to have something to share, whether it be, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but whether it would be Struthers' commitment to align across their district, whether it be the work that Buckeye Online School for Success is doing virtually. I can tell you, boss, that no one else will be doing a virtual presentation about virtual learning. Just an idea, you might want to do it. Maybe it is from that lens of the community school. Maybe it's from the lens of our dropout recovery school. There is so much knowledge in this room that people would greatly benefit from what you have already put into place. The next update that we need to share with you is that on June 24th, well, some of us might be on summer vacation. There was new language and new resources that were released on restraint and seclusion. And on your Padlet, on your note-taking document, and on this slide show, we have provided you with two resources. One is PBIS and the restraint and seclusion rule checklist, which will help all schools understand the requirements, understand what is needed, and understand all of the pieces and parts. But then a new thing that a new resource that was put out is the PBIS video modules. Not yet, Matthew. The PBIS video modules are a little different than what they had been in the past. Before, they just had snippets of videos that walked you through the restraint and seclusion requirements. Now they have these wonderful 4 modules that you can actually review with your staff. You can take time during a staff meeting to do them. They're very short, but this way you are guaranteed that everyone in your building will know this information. And now the other resource that links right to it is the LMS modules that are on PBIS. We know that last year we had the wonderful one that says it takes a building, and it was six chapters that walked us all the way through the introduction of PBIS. From getting started, what PBIS is, all the way through getting our families together, getting our families involved, looking at data. But now they have a new one out there. And we also put this in your resource document as well. The new one is talking about specifically the TFI and that data and how to use that information to action plan. So we encourage you to use these also with your staff, because we know that every 3 years, a building is required to ensure that all of their staff is knowledgeable on the foundations of PBIS. We also have included that into your Padlet, so you have that just in case you're new as an administrator. But it also tells us that when we get new individuals in, we have to onboard them. We have to make sure that they also know the information. We also have to make sure that they know how this information aligns with our building. And when it talks about our staff, it means everyone. It means everyone from the moment they step on the bus, they walk in our building, they go to lunch. Any individuals that are working with our students, our scholars, need to be aware of the foundations of PBIS. And I know that we had one building for sure last year that utilized it takes a building with their whole staff to acclimate them and to onboard them. So I don't know if they would like to share anything in the chat box, how that worked for them to help our other individuals in our room to actually implement this in their building. So we welcome you, Leanne, to share anything about how that worked for you last year. Lastly, I think, if I remember correctly, we have the update on our, oops, it wasn't lastly. Another update is the Tier 3 training, which is planned for spring. We are currently being acclimated to the ODE's required training on Tier 3. And as we continue to build that module, we will be launching that in the spring. We know that some of you have actually already gone through our challenging behavior series and are very well immersed in what Tier 3 looks like, sounds like, and feels like. But even if you want to come in for a refresher, you will be welcomed. But now it is my honor to actually turn this over to our newest consultant, Jessica Dedek, who maybe before she actually begins, will actually share a little bit about where she came from. So that way we can start to build that relationship with her. And in the meantime, if you have anything in the chat box or have any questions you want to ask us, go ahead, put those in the chat box and we are monitoring it. Jessica?
Wait, I was trying to.
Yeah, a real drum roll finally.
I'm trying.
It doesn't crash. Oh,
Well, it does.
so end of that.
After minutes.
I don't think that's
I
necessary.
don't think
right
you
now.
want to wait that.
Well, hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Jessica Dedek. I was previously with the Buckeye Local Schools up in Ashtabula County. And I've been working to integrate PBIS into my former school building and then working to build the capacity across the entire district before joining this state support team. And I'm very excited to work with all of you or to continue working with all of you because I've been an active member of the Coaches Network for several years now. So it's exciting to be on this side of the wall and in the room that we're in this morning.
So it's in the room where it happens.
Right? So it's very nice to see all of you this morning. I do get the privilege to celebrate some of our success across the region and some of your success across the region. So we finalized all of the PBIS recognition applications and and we want to celebrate them in our region. We had 33 school buildings that received a bronze recognition for implementing Tier 1 with fidelity. So congratulations to those 33 districts. We are reaching out if we have not yet. There will be notification coming out very soon with all of our feedback and that recognition. We also want to congratulate the 9 school buildings that received silver recognition for not only implementing Tier 1 with fidelity, but also having a very high quality Tier 2 structure as well. And then last but definitely not least, I'm trying to fix my lighting over here too, that everybody's looking at that one. We did have 3 school buildings that received a gold recognition, and that recognition is for not only having Tier 1 and Tier 2 solidly throughout the building, but also to have a 3rd tier running up and with fidelity throughout their entire building. So we celebrate all of that success. We know that the recognition system is not the be all end all. And we know that some schools choose not to apply for that recognition. So we do celebrate the success that is going on, but I will say it is very helpful for us to get a feel for what's going on across the region. It helps us to see great new ideas so that when we're working with schools, we know who to refer them back to and say, you know what, we worked with this school, we saw on their binder that they were doing an amazing job with this. Let me connect you so that we can help you network better. So we do appreciate those of you that are applying for that recognition because it's great to celebrate you. It's amazing to be able to see your success and celebrate that with you, but it's also very helpful for us to know how to better support you and how to better network across the region. We do have one more celebration, if we can pass on to the next slide. We did have 2 school districts in our region also receive the district award, and there's some extra responsibilities with that in having multiple buildings that apply for recognition. But we do celebrate those 2 districts that were able to not only have a solid foundation within a building, but starting to align those practices across the district and to really make it a district focus at improving those structures. So we do also want to celebrate that because that's an amazing accomplishment to not only just have PBIS in a single building, but also to spread it across the district. So congratulations. I know, like I said, we've reached out to some of the schools as we were finalizing all of this, but the information should be coming out very soon if you have not already received it. And like I said, we do have feedback for all of those binders that were submitted. where we can celebrate what's going really well and encourage you in ways that you can improve or refine or strengthen your different tiers as you're implementing it. So congratulations and keep up the amazing work across the region.
And we have one of those districts in this room right now.
We do.
And actually, I don't mind shouting them out.
Yeah.
Ashtabula, who's in the house right now, was one of the districts that actually applied for district recognition and was awarded. So maybe even Julie could share some ideas of how that happened for them in the chat box or when she feels comfortable later on. So
I feel like
congratulations.
she's starting to blush. She's hiding.
My camera was on, now I'm shutting it off.
But no, great work,
Oh, that's
Ashtabula.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. You guys are doing amazing work.
And we have
You know
other-
what? I have an amazing team and amazing people, and that is the root of it right there.
You said it right from the beginning. PBIS is not a person. It is a team. It is a philosophy. It's the way we do business. So I love that you said that you have an amazing team because you do have an amazing team.
Do we have anybody else?
We have a lot of buildings that are in our room
Yeah.
that actually applied, but I know the official letter hasn't gone out yet,
Yeah. Sorry for the evil tease. Okay. What do we have next? So now we've been sitting here for quite a while. We've had a lot of information, updates, everything. We want to give you just a kind of a moment to pause and process all of those updates, the recognition. We want to give you just kind of a moment to absorb all of that, jot down any of your notes that you were thinking in your mind, but didn't necessarily have a chance to write down. If you have any questions about our updates, feel free to add them into the chat. Do we need to stretch yet? Are we good?
Say about 1 minute?
Yeah, if you guys just want to like stretch out for a little bit, we'll take a little minute break to feel our feet again.
Okay, before we move on, this is audience participation time. In the chat box, write down one thing that you thought about or wrote about on your note page. But we're going to move forward, but we're going to expect to see that audience participation.
Go.
And ready. And go. I think we can move forward while they're going to be writing soon.
That was the slowest button I've ever pushed.
Okay, so we are going to move on with an analysis of that binder review. When we are able to look at those recognition applications, we do work through every single tier that's applied for. And we take in all of that information. So as I already mentioned earlier with the recognition system, we do find it very valuable to learn about you. Now, the system is probably going to change again next year, where you are going to probably have an external team that will be viewing those binders. So just as we're working through your different tiers this year, just be very mindful that the evidence that you're submitting, if you do choose to submit for recognition, it will go outside of our region probably. So make sure that it's very explicit what you're doing and how you're demonstrating some of these different features. But we are very hopeful that we'll still receive that information back and that we will kind of be a filter between whoever is actually assessing those or reviewing those binders and then getting them back to you. So we will still be hopefully receiving that information so that we can continue to make data informed decisions about what we're doing. But one of the celebrations we would like to recognize is this was the most successful feature across the region. And it was feature 1.3, which was on behavioral expectations. And this is the one that had the highest number of people that received a 2, I shouldn't say people, schools that received a 2. So here you'll notice the dark blue is the schools that earned their recognition for bronze or higher. And then the lighter blue is those who weren't quite able to earn the high enough score to receive recognition, but they still have a lot in place. And this is again why it's so helpful to still submit those that recognition to help us know what you're doing well, because you are doing a lot of things well. So those behavioral expectations, oh, now we're starting to get some people adding their comments. Sorry. The expectations of having those 5 or fewer, so we always aim for 3 to 5 expectations that are consistent across not just the classroom, but in all of locations, all of the settings. We're noticing a solid foundation with that, but not just having them, actually utilizing them, actually teaching them. So you'll notice on that score of a 2, you don't just have them and throw them on the wall, but you're actually teaching them to your students, because one of the components required for a score of 2 is that you have walkthrough data that supports that it's being implemented. So for this one, you have to have at least 90% of your staff that can list at least 67% of those expectations, because we know that sometimes whenever you're doing those walkthroughs, all of a sudden you just blank out and you might forget one of the words, or you say respectful instead of responsible or whatever it is. So we do understand that there are sometimes just human error, but it also points to the value of that walkthrough tool. And we strongly encourage you not just to wait until you're applying for recognition to use the walkthrough tool. We encourage you to use it periodically throughout the year to really track your implementation level. So it's okay early in the year, once we've got those expectations kind of established or reestablished for the year, send someone around the building to do that walkthrough tool internally. Just choose a person, whether it's your administrator, whether it's your building lead, or just someone who's available to walk around the building and ask the staff, do you know what those expectations are? Can you list them? Have you formally taught them in your classroom yet? And then review, what is your acknowledgement system? So if it's a ticket, if it's a tootle, whatever it is, go around and just ask the staff, have you given a student, whatever your acknowledgement system, have you given a student a ticket in the past week? Ask your bus drivers, are you familiar with this? Have you handed out a ticket or a tootle or whatever it is? Ask your cafeteria staff. So trying to stretch yourselves a little beyond just focusing on that teaching staff that shows up to the staff meetings, but make sure that you also reach out beyond those and consider utilizing that tool throughout the year to improve your success. Does anybody else have any other success stories or questions about this specific feature, and how do you ensure that your behavior expectations are clear and consistent across your building? And feel free to unmute or just throw it in the chat box if you're more comfortable with that.
And Jessica, I've been putting things in the chat box, like a helpful hint is I call them walkarounds.
Yes, I'm
Do
sorry.
walkarounds informally. And at the beginning of the year, you might have to do them more frequently. And maybe after those certain times of the year where scholars are a little bit more anxious. So Madeline asked that question, when you say walkthrough tool, do you have a template for that? And you can either create your own template, or you can actually use the one that is in the TFI I don't remember what page it's on. Wait a minute,
I
hold
was gonna
on.
say It's like 27.
I want to say it's like 27. It's not 25, it's not 26, because I know what that is.
I know, because that's the scoring pages.
It
but
is the scoring
It's
page.
either right before that or right after that. I forget. Marla's gonna find it.
It's a shame. I've only done this how many times? The walkthrough tool actually starts on page 27.
Oh.
And you really only do a random sampling. So you would do maybe a couple from each grade that you have, maybe different wings of your building, whatever you like. But great question, Madeline. So you
Yeah.
can create your own. I've had principals that have their little check off in their little notebook as they walk through, and they just check it off. They look around their building to make sure that the expectations are up in the rooms. And it really isn't implementation by lamination. It really is implementation by actually teaching. But great question.
Yeah, and it's very helpful for even the staff to be asked that question on the spot, because you do have that adrenaline rush and you do tend to forget. But if it becomes second nature that somebody asks me, have you taught the expectations? You confidently say, yes, I absolutely have. And I know I have. I've reviewed them at the beginning of the week, and I'm going to review them again at the end of, whatever activity. So thank you for asking about that, because there are several different ways that you can do that. And like Marla was saying, some even administrators will just add it in their informal observations, or just their own walkthrough tool. That's one more piece that they try to incorporate during their already utilized fidelity tool that they have in place.
And remember, for your baby kindergartners, you might have to do it a little bit differently, because at that age, they may not be able to articulate all of the expectations right from the beginning of the school year, but they can absolutely demonstrate, they can model it. And I even had one school that they carried around a popular stuffed animal that they used. So the kids actually told the expectations to the stuffed animal and not the person. But that's something to celebrate, though, that we have our expectations in place.
Yes, yes. So while, like I said, that is the most accessible feature in the region, we always want to consider new ways to strengthen that feature, because it is a very important part of your PBIS framework. So while we do want to celebrate it, we also want to make sure that we're stealing all of the great ideas that are taking place across the region to continue to strengthen even our strongest part of our features. Now, we've also had a couple of challenging features. And like I said, we're really using this to consider ways to better support you, to identify new resources that maybe we need to assist with. But the most challenging feature, and I chose this by the highest number of zeros, the highest number of rubrics that did not have this in place at all. And even with that, we do have, I shouldn't be dark and gloomy, we do have some people doing great things. So you can see here, we did have 13 of our applicants did receive a 2. So there are great things happening in the region, but we also want to make sure that we're assisting those schools that struggle with this feature, because it is a challenging feature to reach out. And I personally feel like it's kind of an afterthought at times, because there's so much when you're getting started. So if you are at that point where you feel comfortable in the other pieces, this might be a great focus piece for you this year. Or if you are just getting up and started, this is a great way to strengthen your framework, because involving your students, your family, and your community will make it easier to strengthen your whole entire tier 1. But we also know how vulnerable it can be to reach out to your students and family. We know how much preparation can be taken into consideration, because you really have to have your ducks in a row in order to feel comfortable reaching out to them. But we strongly encourage the ability to find that safe community partner, to find that safe family member, and to reach out and ask them, what do you think about what we have in place? What do you think about what we're doing? How do you think you can better fit into what we're doing? So to just clarify, because I know the text is kind of small there, 1.11 is on student, family, and community involvement. And this is that your stakeholders, which again is your students, it's your family, it's your community, they get to provide input on your universal foundations. So they get to provide input on what those 3 to 5 expectations are that we just referred to in the last slide. They get to provide input on those consequences. And I know how challenging that can be, because depending on your community, they might have different views of what consequences means. So you might have to be careful about the language you use when you're bringing that up. You involve them to provide input on your acknowledgement system. How do they feel about the way you acknowledge your students? And that you do this at least once a year. We witnessed some schools that did this regularly throughout the year, that this was an ongoing relationship that they had. We understand not every school is at that point, especially post-COVID, where we had to kind of shut down in more than one way. But we really encourage you to have a two-way conversation. So we see a lot of schools that are doing an amazing job at just sharing the information. Hey, look, these are our high five winners. Hey, look, these are the students of the month. Hey, look, these are the kids earned this amazing prize, and let's celebrate. And these are the toodles, and that's great. That's amazing. But how can you get them to respond back? How can you involve them in the two-way conversation so that it isn't just, look what we're doing, but here's what we're doing. How can we do better? Here's what we're doing. What do you think we can improve upon? Or what are ways that you think we can grow? How can we partner with you? So this is definitely one that actually we were just reading the newest educational leadership magazine last night, and the whole entire issue is about family engagement. And there were so many connections that we want to share out with you after this, because it literally just came out yesterday, about that two-way conversation, that it isn't just throwing the information at them and walking away saying, I gave it to you, but really involving them in a dialogue about behavior, about expectations, about acknowledgement, to just marry it so that the conversations that we are having in our building can also happen back in the home. Because what we are doing, it doesn't need to happen in isolation. It can happen back at the home. It can happen at the farmer's market that everyone goes to, or the ice cream stand, or whatever it is. It can be a community improvement. So I will pause again on this feature to reach out to any of you. Do any of you have any amazing ideas, amazing ways that you have involved your community or your families or your students that has really helped build your program? And again, feel free to unmute or throw something in the chat, because I know we can do better with this, but I also know that some of you have amazing pieces in place already. So I will stop talking because I feel like Madeline might get to share.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you. So last year, we did get some parents involved in our PBIS committee, as well as student reps, and it was so amazing to hear their input. Really helpful. And they're continuing on. I've reached out if they are willing to serve again this year in that capacity. And every time we have any of our parent meetings, we always have PBIS as part of that. So we're getting it out as often as we can. Again, our community is a little bit different because our students are all over Ohio. So, virtually looks differently, but having those perspectives in our regular monthly meetings was so helpful.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Madeline. Does anybody else have any? I'm sorry, Madeline, I was going to interrupt you.
Well, I just know that I read a wonderful news article about one of our schools that was talking about PBIS, and I'm just curious if they would share about that, because I don't even know how that happened. But I saw the article on their Google Classroom. Hint, hint. Who might that have been? Because I don't even know how it managed to get into the newspaper down in Sebring.
Yes, I'm with you, Marla. We have a need at our school because we're such a needed district, financially, economically disadvantaged students, and supplies, things needed for school. We worked through this summer with our care team coordinator as well. And each of our students was given an invitation. We also included our high school students in this, so it was a district-wide effort. But we have a community swimming pool. So we hosted a back to school bash where the kids could come with their families and swim for 2 hours. We had food set up from local community places of business. They made donations or gave us a great deal that our parent organization paid for, things like pizza waters. We had a donation of coins. We did a coin toss in the water. We did water balloon tosses. Loads of staff were there voluntarily to assist. And as each student came in, they received tickets for prize baskets. But every single student went through, met their classroom teacher. They were given a book bag with everything in it that they needed for their school year, all of their supplies that they then brought to the school. And we had such positive feedback from our families, thank you, thank you. And it was just a way to get the kids in and have fun and start the year off on a positive note. Here are your supplies. There are no needs to worry about. Everything's provided for you, snacks and such. Great feedback. But in listening to conversation, how could it have been made better? Absolutely, we could have had a little PBIS stand with some sort of survey. What might you like to see happening in our school this year? So I think that's something that we'll add to it. Our county sent the photographer to kind of showcase what we were doing, and she has it on our district website, and then it was in the newspaper, and it was through the county. So definitely some positive things that I didn't realize we could kind of tag team and work with our care team coordinator on that. So we have another event coming up in September called Literacy Under the Lights, and it's going to take place at our football field. Again, feeding, raffle baskets. The library locally and the Mahoning County Library are also a part, and we're giving kids books, loading them up on bags of books, and going to come through like our band. So again, it's a district-wide effort going on here coming up, and I think we'll have some type of PBIS representative there, as was being discussed. That's a wonderful idea. But yeah, thank you, Marla.
We have to celebrate each other. Because again, there are so many things that we can do and we can learn from each other. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but if I see good things, I'm going to highlight them. But think about the opportunities. There are so many different ways to survey parents or to even engage in a conversation with them. So we just encourage you to do that. And just know that any one of your SST consultants can even actually help you by setting up surveys that are free. You don't have to collect the data. You don't have to monitor it. It's completely anonymous. But through PBIS apps, we have the ability to do that for you. And there are different ones for elementary. Starts at 3rd grade though. So elementary, senior high, junior high, families, and teachers. So you could have a wealth of information right there. Sorry, Jessica, I just get so enthused when I hear good stories.
No, I had goosebumps listening to Leanne's story. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that you're connecting, that you want to connect PBIS into something that's already being established. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because don't feel like your PBIS team has to organize this giant event to get stakeholder input. Utilize what you already have set up, because we know that the buildings are doing great activities with their families, and try partnering up with another team. If you have a family engagement team in your building or in your district, reach out to them and say, hey, when are you planning something? When are you going to do something? I know we had another school district, and I'm blanking on who, that flat out said, you know what, we have parent teacher conferences coming up. We forgot to do a push off earlier in the year. So you know what, we can set up something during parent teacher conferences. We can welcome the parents as they enter and as they're waiting for their appointment slots. So there are ways to just utilize what's already in place to kind of shove your way in and involve PBIS into that. It doesn't need to happen in isolation, and it probably shouldn't happen in isolation because PBIS doesn't exist all by itself. It's embedded into everything that we do. So involving the community should also just be embedded into ways that we already reach out to our families. So I'm so glad that you shared that. Was there anything else that anybody else wanted to share that's a celebration, or any questions or any struggles that you're dealing with right now with that specific feature?
Jessica, I can share something that maybe Latonia started. And they're starting really small. The elementary gives out bear badges and bear paws, and they got their Dairy Queen, their local Dairy Queen, to also be involved in when they see the students following the matrix and the behaviors, the positive behaviors. They have been giving out those bear badges or bear paws. So starting out small and getting the community involved, I think is really important. And I just put in the chat that there are surveys on that center on PBIS. I know we have to give ourselves grace because a lot of us were probably just starting to implement and maybe we didn't think about the surveys yet. I know the districts that I support were just starting to dive into that. But there are some really good examples that you can make it your own though. And just remember it's a template, but I think there's some really good ideas there. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. You're absolutely right. There are so many resources there. And I also appreciate, Susan, first of all, there's so many things. I love that your district is reaching out into the community for that. Oh, sorry. It's yelling at me. I'm sorry. That they're reaching out for that acknowledgement system and incorporating it beyond just the school walls. I think that's amazing. I also appreciate you saying that not every school is ready yet for those surveys because we are at the very beginning of the year. And I love that you're saying that because that might be the back of some people's mind. Like, I have to do this at the year. I'll do it way later once we've got things established. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that there's so much going on and there's so many other details and things have already passed and it's too late to incorporate them. That's fine. But this is then one of those pieces to explicitly put in your action plan. When are we going to readdress this? Who is going to be responsible for readdressing this? Who's going to reach out to your family engagement team or whatever other team maybe it's if you have a title team that works on those engagement activities? Who is responsible for following up with this to ensure that it happens this year and that we don't just push it off and go, oh, future us will do that. And then future us forgets about it. So this is that important piece of including it in your action plan and writing it down and committing to it and marking a calendar reminder, whatever you need to do to ensure it does happen, because maybe right now isn't the right time for your team, but don't forget about it. So make sure it is a piece later. And like I said, as you're planning for it later, if you struggle and you're like, I have no idea how we can even do this, that's absolutely a time to reach back out to us and say, I have this on my list. I know I'm supposed to do it. I have no clue what else to do. Please feel free to reach back out to us and we will absolutely help you find a way to improve this feature.
Jessica,
Go ahead, Sue. No, go ahead, Sue.
I was just going to say, Jessica, you just made me think, and I have Beth from Wellsville on here. Maybe that's something that can be a role on a team, is a community engager. Like, how are we going to engage the community? So that is on our forefront. I like that idea. So thank you for sparking that. And Beth, maybe we can add that on as a role on our Wellsville team.
And think about the ideas. Do you already have community organizations that come to your building? Let's start there. Let them start to spread the word. Do you have a library that happens to be right in your neighborhood? Let's go to the library and ask them, can we put up our expectations here and that say in the library, we are safe, responsible, and respectful, and what it looks like. Just imagine what could happen in that community when, again, it takes a village. not just a building. It takes a village. But this is such a cool conversation. All right.
Do we have any other thoughts? Because that was an amazing dialogue there. Do we have any other thoughts, questions, comments about student, family, and community engagement?
I think the other thing to consider too is like, how do you, like, a lot of the conversation is about bringing in parents and talking to them about what PBIS is, what it looks like. But also think about how do you make PBIS a living, breathing thing during that event? And I bring that up because Jessica's one of the best examples. And I didn't have any other way to coax her into talking about it. But Jessica, in one of the schools that she was working in last year, held a carnival. And I'll let her, I guess I'll let, she can pick up from here. It's obviously her story, so there's no sense of me telling it.
Sure. So we, post-COVID, it was our first event to bring families back together again. It was a title or coordinated event, but it was a reading and math night that we were kind of turning into this carnival where there were games, but also interactive learning opportunities, and they earned tickets for demonstrating different learning skills. And then it's a carnival, so there were like carnival prizes. But as the event approached, we realized that our outdoor extravaganza was going to be inside, and we were expecting a very high number of participants, which was amazing. And we wanted a lot of people, and they were desperate for that connection back to their school and community. But we were not fully prepared to have that many bodies inside. So as soon as it was moved inside, and shame on us for not assuming sooner, we utilized pride as our expectations in that building. So we immediately took our matrix from our traditional building expectations. We scrapped out all of some of the locations and created expectations for how they could be prepared for the carnival, how they could be respectful during the carnival, how they could be involved safely in walking feet and PAX voices at this, and how to wait line, because we did anticipate long lines and we were feeding them. So what were our cafeteria expectations? So like I said, we did scrap some of them because they were unique to our events. Some of them we kept the same. The restroom expectations stayed exactly the same. The cafeteria expectations stayed the same. And we shared this all out with all of the parents and the community members within through our platform we use is Class Dojo. So we shared out a video that walked them through each of these. Then we also provided that video for our students to watch as well. And then during the actual event, we had these posters plastered all over the walls. And then my responsibility, and we had a couple other people, we walked around the building and monitored those expectations. And then when I observed somebody being respectful by waiting just in line, there was a really long line for a really fun game that got them a lot of tickets. So I just walked up and acknowledged them. Hey, I really appreciate how responsible or how respectful you're being by waiting patiently in line. Thank you for showing your Kingsville pride. Sorry, I gave away my school. Thank you for showing your pride.
I think.
Oh, it's on already. But thank you for showing your pride. So not only did the students start to recognize that this is how, that our expectations transfer beyond just the school day, but it was a great way to model to the parents what those expectations look like. It was a great way for us to model how we acknowledge those behaviors and how explicitly we give that feedback. It's not just ticket, 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 ticket. There was verbal feedback for every single one of those. I watched a child running down the hall to the next station. He saw me, stopped running, and used his walking feet. So I absolutely acknowledge that. You know what? I know you're having a great time, and I love that you were able to redirect your own behavior. Thank you so much for being responsible or safe or whatever. I stood in the cafeteria and watched people throw away their trash. And I went, thank you so much for throwing away your trash. I hope you have a great evening. And just giving them that model of what does this look like. And when we then followed up with a survey and asked the parents, what did you think? How do you think it went? And that was also our opportunity to ask them about our acknowledgement system and about our expectations, because they had just witnessed them. There was an overwhelming positive response to the way that we incorporated that. It was by far, we had over 200 people in that building.
274.
So we had nearly 300 people in a building post-COVID. It was raining, so the line it was insane. It should have been insane. It was the calmest, most pleasant carnival I've ever experienced in my career. And I've experienced quite a few carnivals where there's just, it's so loud and it's chaotic and there's running and it's just, and this was not that. And I'm confident it was because of all of the pieces we put in place beforehand to add our PBIS to it, to ensure that it was a fun and safe and engaging environment for all of our families. And it was just a great way to model what we do and how we utilize our PBIS framework.
That really is a beautiful example of students actually modeling the behaviors that you want to see. And I don't know if you really captured the value of purposeful praise. You didn't just say thank you and give them a ticket. You said, thank you for being respectful. You were being respectful by doing this. That is how we train or teach our students those behaviors that we want to see. So thanks for sharing. That's pretty awesome.
And how we train our parents, right?
How we shared with our parents exactly what our expectations are.
Yeah.
We all meet expectations. Doesn't matter if we're 3 or 33.
Or
Or more.
Or more. All right.
Okay, so we definitely spent a long time on that one. I appreciate your engagement during that. We will move on to one more before we take another little stretch break, because we know we've been sitting for way too long, so I do apologize for that. We do have one more that was an additional challenging feature, and I was kind of torn about which one to do first, but I chose the other one. This one had the lowest number of schools that earned a 2 on this feature. And I have some ideas as to why that might be taking place, but this was another challenging feature across our region, and it's 1.6, which is in regards to your discipline policies. So the language for this one is that school policies and procedures describe and emphasize proactive, instructive, and/or restorative approaches to student behavior that are implemented consistently. And there's a lot of pieces here where you'll notice that we have a lot of ones, because a lot of schools were able to do pieces and parts of this, but not quite all of it. So the very first one is having school policies and procedures. We do know that some of the reasons that schools were not able to earn a 2 was because some of their school policies are based on district policy, and the district policy has not been updated in who knows how long, to really demonstrate that it's emphasizing being proactive, to demonstrate that it's instructive and or restorative. So some of that outdated language is hindering some of the schools that are still thriving beyond, working around that. And this is one of the reasons that having administrative support on your team is so important, because we know that it's challenging for a classroom teacher to make district-wide changes, but it's also not impossible. So we do encourage those teams that maybe your district policy hasn't been updated, offer to share at the board meeting, offer to have a conversation. Hey, here's what we're doing. Do you know what we're doing? Do you know the success we're having? Do you understand PBIS? Because maybe your board doesn't fully understand the big picture of all of it. And find a way to encourage the change of that policy if possible. And again, having administrative support to back you up and say, we need to do better, we can do better. Let's look at it. Let's have a conversation. What can we readdress? Because we need that piece to help us truly move our system forward, and kind of moving towards that restorative approach. We also know another piece of that is that it's implemented consistently. And this was another one that we struggled to see the evidence at times that it was being implemented consistently. So that comes into play with just making sure that that you're collecting your data, that you're consistently collecting your data, and that you're referring back to it. So a lot of the times we were reading meeting minutes or sometimes just data summaries to just try to find ways that we could see that it was being implemented consistently. And we know that's a challenge to demonstrate that, to document that, to show the evidence for that. But try to keep that in your mind is how are we collecting this? How do we know that people are utilizing our system with some consistency? That they are trying to be proactive, that they are being instructive. So I'd be curious if anybody has any success stories on this, or again, clarifying questions about this feature that they would like to share, or if anybody else on my team here has any additional input on that one.
I keep even thinking that it could be part of our walkthrough. We could be collecting that data in our walkthrough, but always thinking about the fact that change is difficult. So we also have to remember that when adults are learning something new, we have to support them in their learning. So how can we support our board members? How can we support our individuals that help write our policies or our practices or our code of conduct that's out there? What research can we provide them to help them with the information? So another thing to think about, another possible action item for an action plan.
And I do like Marla, you saying just add it to your walkthrough, because that's a great way for, if somebody's walking through the building, you can witness somebody being proactive. You can witness somebody being instructive. You can see them redirecting a behavior in an instructive way. Or there's also ways to demonstrate or to witness the restorative process. So I agree, Marla, that's a fantastic way to truly know. And again, this isn't about the recognition, but it's truly, how does your team know that this is being implemented consistently? How does your team know that this is happening? And sometimes you just have to look for it, or sometimes you just have to ask. But we do encourage you to do that, to look for it, to ask your staff. You know, if changing your code of conduct is out of the picture right now, and I also understand that changing things in the middle of the year, or even once the school year has started, that's a challenge. So as Marla said, adding that as an action item at the end of the year might be a feasible way at moving forward with that. But what can you do now? What is manageable? What's within your control? That can just help your team truly know that this feature is being implemented with fidelity. So I lied. I do have one final thing, and we kind of alluded to it earlier. One of the other just celebrations is using that TFI to start a discussion then district-wide. So we do have some schools that are moving towards aligning themselves. Whether they use the same expectations the whole way across, whether they use the same acknowledgement system the whole way across, or just having a common thread. Maybe your elementary only uses 3 expectations, but your high school uses 5 expectations. Having at least a common one, or maybe that 3 transfers the whole way up and you just build on your system. So the last 2 there, or actually all 3 of them, are just rhetorical questions that I am going to give you a minute to kind of jot down and think about. Is what are your common threads in your district? How can you support students consistently as they move through the system, not just through your building? And then how, again, can we utilize community resources in aligning our district? So these are just rhetorical questions, or if you have any actual thoughts on that, I do apologize because I forgot I had one more slide before we take a break. So we do want to celebrate, like I said, that some schools have taken back their feedback already. And like I said, that's all coming out very, very soon. If you haven't received yours yet, they're taking that feedback and not just discussing it as a building team, which you absolutely should do, but then they're also having a district-wide conversation. How are you doing on feature 1.1? How are you doing it? How do you fix this? And trying to utilize each other to move not just your building forward, but move your district, move your community forward at implementing PBIS. So we do encourage you to take that. We're going to give you some time to pause and process all of that we had this so far. We know that was a lot of information and a lot of sitting time, so I do apologize for that. How long do we want to pause the process for this?
Pause the process and use it as a time to break.
And as a break, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
What do we think?
8 minutes
8 minutes? 8 minutes. So that brings us
to 10:02.
10:02. So take a little stretch, get a drink of water if you need to, and come on back at 10:02, please.
And Gordon was sitting out in the hallway. I don't know if you ever went to class. Outside of our room.
Someone always playing corporation games. Who cares? They're always changing corporation names. We just wanna dance here. Someone stole the stage. They call us irresponsible. Write us off the page. Marconi plays the mumbo. Listen to the radio. Don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. It's just another Sunday in a tired old street. Police have got the choco. And we just lost the beat. Who counts the money underneath the bar? And who rides the wrecking ball into our guitars? Don't tell us you need us, 'cause we're the ship of fools, looking for America, crawling through your schools. Marconi plays the mumbo. Listen to the radio. Don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. So welcome back, everybody. So we've been talking, Jessica took us through this great analysis of the binders. And honestly, I can't stress enough to you, like how much we use those to guide our work, as well as like, we can't undersell your involvement in these sessions, because we are 100% relying and leaning on you to help guide us in making these sessions exactly what you need them to be. And I know a lot of times people say that stuff and they don't necessarily mean it, or it's not reflected in the work that you then see. And I can tell you, that's not the case here. That's not, our office hours are designed to support you. Everything is, I mean, we've tried to design this year to really provide you, even if it's on an individual basis, with additional support, additional coaching, whatever that may be. So please, please, please utilize this time, utilize us, utilize the office hours, because we truly want this to be about helping each of you. So in doing that, and in thinking about the fact that it's September 1st, I know some of you started school like 2 weeks ago. Some of you have started, stopped, some of you haven't started yet. The fact of the matter is it's still only September 1st. So in thinking about that, and we also want to think about starting strong, because Jessica's provided us with all this information about, like, things that we could work on to improve our structures and our teams. So we want to think about starting strong, what that means. And oftentimes starting strong requires us to get some quick wins, right? We've heard that before. One of our other series is going to talk a lot about that actually this year. They've developed a whole session on kind of that premise, but get early wins to build momentum fast. I mean, I think we've all been part of things where we've heard that, but the key to early wins is to identify problems that A, can be tackled in a reasonable period of time, and B, have a solution that will result in tangible operational improvements. So this is probably going to show you how much of a nerd I am. But I was recently reading an article from the Harvard Business Review about the importance of small wins. And the author talked about doing this like exhaustive analysis with workers in their diaries. And they discovered what they referred to as the progress principle. And what they found was that of all the things that can boost emotions, motivation, perceptions during the workday, the single most important thing in making progress is meaningful work. And the more frequently people experience that sense of progress, the more likely they are to continue being productive in the long run. So thinking about that's the biggest takeaway there. Of all the things that can boost inner work life, the most important thing is progress and meaningful work. So I want us to think about that this morning, and us think about like what that means for starting strong. So we're going to ask you, we've asked a lot of you a lot of questions this morning and asked for a lot of responses, but we want to give you some time to think about this. But how are you kicking off PBIS in your school or district this year? You know, what have you done? Because again, I don't want to dismiss the fact that some of you have been going now for a couple of weeks, but I also know that it's only been a couple of weeks. So what have you done, and or what do you plan to do? So how do you plan on getting PBIS kicked off this school year? And we're going to start right off with another one of those pause and process times to give you just it's 10:06. So just to give you a couple minutes to think about that. And then we're going to ask for you to share that out. Because again, this is a lot of this, it is called the Coaches Network. So in order to network, we need your input and engagement. So we're going to ask you to share how you're getting PBIS kicked off in your school or district. So a couple minutes, I'll stop talking so you can do that. One of us will set a timer and we'll come back in 2 minutes. All right, so that was your 2 minutes, or a little bit more, since we were a little bit slow on getting our stopwatches started. But I'm going to go back to this slide about how you're kicking PBIS off in your district or school year. And just use that as our sort of our starter for everybody. But now's the time for you to unmute yourself, turn on your video, and share with us, all of us, with the network here, what you're doing to get PBIS started off in your school or district. So with that being said.
Yeah, and don't assume that it's an obvious start.
Yeah.
It's okay if you think it's what everyone did. We still want to celebrate it. We still want to hear about it and recognize that.
Yeah, and again, keeping in mind like those quick wins, sometimes it's, hey, listen, we've met, we've set our dates, maybe that's what it is.
Nothing is too small is what you're saying then.
Right.
As long as we're starting somewhere and moving forward.
Well, this is Madeline again here. When we had our 3-day in-service, we always have our PBIS, as part of that, and kind of review, what it is. Most of our teachers are returning, although we do always have new staff members. So we just always have that as part of our regular in-service, the time there. I would like to share a comment that we did hear as we got into, and the teachers, they know the expectations are to teach those expectations into their classes. And so our 6th grade teacher wrote back and said, boy, these are the kids that are returning this year are so excited. They want to teach all about this because they know it so well, and they were super excited. So that was a really great feedback to hear that. And we've heard that in the upper elementary, kids who are returning are all excited about knowing it well enough that they can teach it. So
that's awesome.
We celebrate that.
And that's some of that evidence that reviewers are looking for in your evidence binders when you submit for recognition is like, what are you doing to, like with new staff members, right? How are you onboarding with people? So that would be a great piece that, a school could put in there if they're doing that we review, every year during our convocation or opening day, whatever it happens to be, or whatever you're calling it, we review with new staff, or with, I guess not with new staff, but with our staff. Thank you, Madeline.
Stacy, what would you like to share?
So in my classes, we did like a collaborative activity using our BOSS, our matrix. And we just went over the location that we were looking for these behaviors, like the classroom, breakout room, since we're an online school, home, using their technologies, different activities that we go to for BOSS. Sometimes we do our field trips. And then what I would do is just talk about being responsible, optimistic, showing respect, and being self-motivated. And then I would push out like a collaborate board where they could type in on like a sticky note that gets posted what those behaviors mean to them. So what does being responsible look like to you? What does being optimistic look like to you? Showing respect, self-motivated, in those different locations that we're looking for. And then I just explained, your teachers are looking for those behaviors. We just want to let you know that we see you. So be looking in your email for a BOSS Bravo, and you'll be entered into a drawing at the end of the month. So just explaining to them what the program is and what your teachers are looking for in those different locations.
That is awesome, Stacy. I got a BOSS Bravo the other day from being at the BLG meeting. And what grade again do you teach, Stacy? I forgot.
Well, I teach keyboarding to elementary school students. It rotates every quarter. And then I mostly have high school students.
I would love to hear from the Struthers team because I see you guys were unmuting there for a second. I would love to hear what you guys are doing.
Hi. Yeah, so I know we've met and spoke with Marla a couple times about some of the goals that we've set. We met as a district team for the first time over the summer before school started. And we're definitely looking forward to sharing some ideas on alignment. We've also spent time in Focus 3 training. So our whole staff has been trained, and we're trying to tie the concepts of our PBIS goals with our Focus 3 goals together. And so we've found so many common threads in that, and really trying to connect what the teachers are projecting as far as expectations for their students, and also for ourselves as teachers and teacher leaders and administration. So we have a larger goal of putting together a district binder for this school year. So I know that's something I'll be coming to coaching sessions with questions about. And we really just have an overall collaborative spirit working together that's new and exciting.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing.
They have done some awesome work.
Yeah.
Truly, they have. And I'm so happy to hear about that district conversation. They got this. They can do this. It's the Wildcat way.
All right.
Julie, it looks like you were trying to unmute there.
I was looking for the raise hand icon, but I can't find it. So I just unmuted and figured I'd either speak or not. So at the end of last year, well, last school year, we started a district PBIS team. And I see one of my members is on here, Patty Kraft. But we would meet routinely every 2 weeks throughout the year. And at the end of last year, at our last meeting, we set up the dates for this school year. We sent invites out to get all of those dates on the calendars before even last year it left. And at our last district meeting, we also talked about the action plans just based on the information we got from our walkarounds in April. And so building leaders were meeting before their contracts were out in the early weeks of June to start thinking about how to use that information to plan for this fall. And so we do have all of our invites already sent. You know, we kept communication going with the team even over the summer. And our high school, actually, this kind of goes back to Sebring, but our high school actually implemented PBIS rewards this fall after our conversation with Sebring in the spring. So what they did is kind of modeled it how the junior high had done it, you know, the past few years. They created, the high school team created lesson plans that would be done in homeroom the first couple weeks of school to set those expectations straight from the start. And then they started the PBIS rewards. And every day the coordinator would send out how many kids had received awards from staff members, how many staff members had rewarded students, and we were picking a student of the week for PBIS. So those are some of the highlights that we have, but just, you know, walking around the primary buildings, you know, these first couple weeks, the teachers are teaching these expectations and they're living and breathing it already. We have our little Huron PAX leaders of the day and of the week, and they're walking down the hallway and they're just exhibiting what we expect them to do. And the adults in the building are recognizing that positivity.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much for sharing, Julie.
Way to roar, Julie. Way to roar.
Is there anybody else that would like to share at this time before we move on?
I can share.
We'd love to
All
hear.
right, Beth.
All right. At Wellsville High School, we have had 2 team meetings prior to the start of school. So the first meeting, we determined our roles and set our dates for our PBIS meetings. We also looked over our rubric to see areas of reinforcement and area of refinement to drive our action plan. Our second meeting, we met to create our professional development that the staff had on the first in-service day. So we talked about what you can learn if we could see behind the surface. We had the staff do a hexagon activity where they looked for connections between their hexagon and others. And we talked about how kids learn, why PBIS, and we reviewed all the content in our folders. Like last year, we had a folder that we made like all our signage and we gave to the teachers so that they could put the signs up in the room, along with an explanation of what PBIS is, and if they had any questions, who they could contact in our building about their questions. So we went over the items in the folders. We also talked about being intentional with teaching our expectations and using the words that we're using in our matrix. We did a schedule for our video rollout, and then we also took a staff survey of the incentives they think that the students would like for this upcoming year, because how we do our incentives is at the end of each 9 weeks, we usually have some type of event that goes on. So we're trying to get ready to plan those events that the students can earn. And so right now we need to currently work on having more student involvement and community involvement and input.
That sounds like you're off to an amazing start for your year. That's fantastic.
And Beth got some kudos in the chat box.
Yeah, of course. I just want to say Beth does an amazing job with organizing the team. She makes my life easier. And I just want to share one tidbit that she does that not only helps me, but it'll also help our PBIS team that supports all the districts. Every month when we have a meeting, whether I can be there or not, she has on the agenda supports that Susan can give us. So me as an SST consultant, I might not be at every meeting, but I will be able to support her. And if I can't get that information, I will go to Jessica, Marla, or Matthew to help me out. But that really helps us just to have that communication every month. And then it helps me on what supports that not only she needs, but maybe the district. So having that one-on-one conversation has been really great. And she's very, very organized, and they have done a ton in these last 2 meetings. So I'm really, really excited about where that Wellsville team can go.
Both wonderful accolades. So thank you so much for sharing. And Beth, I look forward to seeing truly how this team continues to grow.
All right, well, we're on the home stretch. It's now 10:23, so we have about 7 minutes to wrap everything up here. I'm going to do my best to make sure that we get out right at 10:30. But in thinking about everything that's been said, everything that's been shared, the things that each of us, Marla, Jessica, myself have shared with you, and thinking about that, I also want you to consider what your next steps are going to be. And we've provided you with some resources to help document those and kind of keep tabs on what your focus is going to be with you and your teams. And those are actually referred to, and I believe they're in your note-taking document, they're action plans. And we have one of those for each of the 3 different tiers. So depending on where you're at, but basically action plans, and they're one of the requirements for submitting for recognition. But it's primarily to help your teams, again, keep tabs on, keep a focus on what you're working on, whether that's from month to month or even from the beginning of the year to the end of year. But what specific actions or steps will you take, and who's going to be responsible for those? That's a place for that stuff to be housed, for your team to keep track of that. Excuse me. Teams create action plans, use them regularly, sustain a better focus and maintain a better focus on implementation efforts. So we gave you access to those, something to think about using with your teams moving forward. I'm going to jump. One of the things I want to end with is this quote here: "Be patient with yourself. Nothing in nature blooms all year." When I found this, I thought, boy, how true is that, right? I mean, anyone that knows me outside of the workplace, I go a little too hard. And I wanted everything to be done overnight. And I can tell you PBIS just isn't going to be that way for you. You know, we've all seen that line to success, right? Yeah, that where it's nice and straight. And then there's other ones that are all curly and they go every which direction. And that's probably more going to be your implementation, right? That's probably going to be more of the process that you go through. It is a 3 to 5 year process. Jessica's one of our newest people to come directly from the field. So she's very much a practitioner. Even at this point, she's still probably a practitioner. So she's got that practitioner mind. And, you know, from one year to the next, you just learn so much about yourself and about your team and about your implementation. And you realize that you're just not, you know, we weren't where we thought we were. And it's just a continual process of getting better, right? Continuous improvement. So be patient, but also what steps or actions can you take today to prepare for the flowers and fruits of the future? So going back to that action plan, what do you need to do now to have the seeds of the coming season ready for planting? Also remember, nothing in nature is perfect. So don't allow the pursuit of perfection get in the way of being good. Sometimes just doing something is better than doing nothing. We've all heard the saying, right? Good is the enemy of great. Implementation doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, again, I go back to, it's not going to be, it's messy, right? And it needs to be individualized to your school and community. Getting it right takes time. So it's going to take several seasons of blooming, if you will.
It is in the struggle where we gain our strength.
So Marla mentioned earlier about that optimistic closure. Now is just the time for you to think about and revisit those intentions that you set for this meeting. You know, were we able to help you meet those? Did we meet those? What do you need to do to see your intentions turn into actions as well, depending on what you set those intentions to be? So if it's something that you need from us, please reach out. Share that in the post-event survey that we're about to give you, or Marla's already probably put in the chat.
Almost, I was waiting for you to, I didn't want to interrupt your talking.
So I guess we still have a few minutes. I know people are probably thinking about their intentions now, so I also don't want to interrupt any of that, but I'll slow down and allow people to think about that.
And remember, it doesn't have to be a grand.
Small wins.
Small wins. And be on the lookout for your SST consultant that works with your building to bring back your rubric, once again, as Jessica shared, to go over that rubric with you. So that way, then, even in that conversation, you might determine some next steps.
On the screen there, you'll see there's a QR code for the post-event survey, as well as in the chat, there should be a URL, a tiny URL for you to copy and paste into another tab. Please share with us what you think would help you. I go back to what I said earlier. This is all about you. We could certainly design things and create, sessions based on what we think you need, and then be way off the mark. Or you could help us by just telling us what you think you need, and we could do our best to make sure that we're meeting your needs, whether it's now or during those office hours. So think about that, and we gladly accept all of your feedback. So with that being said, it's 10:29. We thank you. The next coaches network meeting is November 6th. But between now and then is our office hours, which are on October 6th. And again, Marla explained what those were going to be about. We hope to get something out to you in the coming weeks. As far as learning for that session or follow up for that session, So between now and then, expect to hear from us. And if you have any questions, our email addresses are on there. If you have any other questions or concerns, we'll hang out here for a while, but otherwise have a great Thursday.
Have a great long weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have a safe weekend as well. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for the dialogue.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. This has been great. I appreciate it.
It was nice meeting you for the first time, Joe, and best of luck in your new position.
Thank you so much. Thank you.